me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Hey sports fans, are you ready for an exhilarating gaming experience? Introducing VIPclub.lv, your ultimate online sportsbook and casino. VIPclub.lv offers a vast selection of sports, from football and basketball to tennis and baseball. Bet on your favorite teams and enjoy the thrill of the game. But that's not all. Our state-of-the-art online casino offers a dazzling array of games, including slots, blackjack, roulette, and live dealer tables. Win big with their fantastic promotions, rewards, and exclusive offers. Join VIPclub.lv today and get a generous 200% match welcome bonus to start your winning streak. And make sure to use code ECSI at sign-up. Bet it, win it, and cash it at VIPclub.lv. Visit VIPclub.lv now and play responsibly. VIPclub.lv, your sportsbook and casino extravaganza. Must be 21 or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Visit gambleware.org for help.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, well, essentially the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Wednesday, June 14, 2023, our weekly trip across the border to good friend and colleague, Mr. Andrew McInnis. Shout out to our new sponsor, VIPclub.lv. Make sure if and when you go there, use ECSI at checkout. Tell them JD sent you. They'll take care of you very, very well there. Shout out to the guys behind the glass today, Ben Cohen, Joseph Shea, and Cade Horton. Thank you guys so much. The summer of 2023 at ECSI. We are grateful and thankful. Today, myself and Andrew will talk a little Vegas Knights. And last week, or actually 2 weeks, 2 weeks back or before the Cup started, Andrew gave the Conn Smythe winner at 7-1 out on this show and on social media and Twitter. Congrats to Bruce Cassidy. I told you it wasn't him, Bruins, but you didn't want to listen, so... And we're going to talk CFL Week 2. Andrew's going to get us caught up for this weekend in the CFL. So without further ado, let's bring him in, the one and only Mr. Andrew McInnis. Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Ready for big Week 2 in the CFL. And yes, the NHL is over. And I hate to say it, not to be negative, but I think I was ready for it to be over.
You know, it's funny when you and I talked, and I talked to some colleagues when the number came up, and I am a trust the opening number, and then Vegas is trying to tell us a story. It's our job to figure out the happy ending and obviously cash the ticket. I was shocked at the 130, 135 opening number of Vegas, and then to see start tipping even to 135, 37, 38, 40 till there was some buyback late. After looking at the Panthers going 11-1 after being down to the Bruins 3-1, and a gentleman's sweep against your favorite team and mine, the Leafs, wink, wink, and then the shutout of the Hurricanes. I mean, I'm going to say this. If it wasn't for the 10 days off, if the Panthers could have kept going and played Vegas right off the rip, it might have been different. But a 1-8, Vegas was the better team. Hill was the better goalie. Kachuk was banged up. Yada, yada, yada. Congrats to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, when you take a look at, I want to say this first and foremost, actually, because I keep on saying this on different shows, and I got to say it on your show as well. I am really tired of people blaming the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers for the uneventful finals that took place. How is it their fault? How about you blame the Bruins for blowing a 3-1 lead? No. Let's blame the Leafs for the 4-1 series loss they took. No, I got an idea. Let's blame Rod Brendamore and the Hurricanes for getting swept. How are the Panthers at fault I'm way more of a praise a team than I am put a team down, especially in a championship series. Tip my cap to Denver, and I tip my cap to the Vegas Golden Knights, 2 number 1 seeds, if I might add, as well, in their respective divisions and conferences. So when I look at this Vegas team, they were well-rounded. They had more guys making big plays. They were very disciplined. They know how to walk that line, be aggressive without taking too many penalties. And I'm sure you already know this, but Florida finishes the Stanley Cup Finals 0 for 14 on the power play. Something you just cannot do. I feel so bad for a guy like Bobrovsky, who leads his team so far, but then just in the Stanley Cup Finals gets bombarded, and people saying he wasn't the same guy, but the team wasn't the same team either. I wanted to mention. So hats off to them. Hats off to Marchessault and Phil the Thrill Kessel. Even though he was up in the box, he now has his 3rd Stanley Cup ring. Hats off to him. And I gotta give credit to Jack Eichel as well, because I know there were some issues in Buffalo. I know they didn't want him to get this certain procedure. And I'll be real, I took some shots at the guy. I'm a big team loyalty fan, but he got moved in his first playoffs. He wins a Stanley Cup. So hats off to him. And Jeff, how about those injuries? I mean, the Tkachuk one, his brother had to help him get out of bed for the previous game. He couldn't tie his skates. He couldn't even move before yesterday's game. Aaron Ekblad with a broken foot. Gudas with a pretty much a high sprained ankle. I mean, these are the reasons why basketball fans will argue with me and say this is why load management's a good thing. But look at Shea Weber. Will he ever play in the National Hockey League again? Will Carey Price ever play again? It's hard to say, but these guys are warriors, Jeff.
1,000%. And I hate the C word. I hate when people on social media just come out and use the choke word. And I'm not saying people were using it here. I'm going to cross references over to the NBA and how Jimmy Butler choked. He's not that true top 5, top 10 NBA player. They just got gassed by a better team. Again, another 8 seed like the Panthers. No one talks about Game 7 with Butler rolling his ankle against the Celtics, and he was not himself for the NBA series. Now you look at the start of the Stanley Cup, and you talked about Eichel. Eichel got hit like a freight train.
Yeah.
A clean hit. And he came out, he took it like a champ, and he says, my head was down. I was fair game. And I reached out to a friend, and I was like, oh my God, Kachuk's dead man walking now. Look out. And sure enough, sooner or later, you're going to get it. And that's the NHL. I've never seen these guys are wired differently. I've never seen someone get cut, go get 80 stitches and miss one shift and they're back on the ice. They're just wired differently.
It's very impressive, and it just goes to show how tied they are to their team, and just the will to win. Really, I mean, you make it that far. The biggest question mark is when will they get back to that point that they're in right now, and that's a big question. And I wanted to mention something as well about the Vegas Golden Knights is about the size mismatch that they had over Florida, and just in general how they built their decor. We always talk about having a mobile defenseman, right? Guys like Cale Makar that are changing the game for defensemen. And I would actually almost compare that to kind of a Nikola Jokic in the NBA, a mobile center that we saw more so back in the day than now. But how about the average height being 6'2"? The fact that I think it was 25 pounds, Jeff, that they average outweighed the Florida Panthers, the entire team of Vegas. That's a lot. Think about how much you're playing in the corners, behind the net, battling. If you're outweighed by around 20-some pounds, that's a lot to add up. And it clearly didn't affect the speed of the Golden Knights whatsoever. But the size was certainly a factor there. So the second I saw Tkachuk was out, I should have just pulled trigger on the Golden Knights. Something felt weird to me all day, so I actually pretty much just stayed on the sideline for yesterday's game. I leaned towards the over, but I don't know. There was something in the back of my head that was just worried about maybe Bob stealing the show and them having a tight game. But looking ahead to next year, it's going to be very wide open. And if it's all right with you, I look forward to throughout the summer speaking a little bit about some of these the odds as the free agency. You know how free agency can impact odds. We always talk about it in the NFL, you know, what the odds were before this trade and what this team is now after the trade. And I'm going to have picks for you next week as well for the NHL draft. So I look forward to that.
And it's funny, I was just going to close hockey and ask you, I mean, obviously Bedard, the Blackhawks, all those numbers will be super duper inflated, I assume. Again, I'm not the NHL expert. Can one guy of his stature make that big of a change in just 1 year, or does he need a lot more pieces around him?
He's going to need a lot of help because I just think based on his size and I think that he'll be able to set up guys around him, but I think it'll take some time for his goal scoring ability to get there. Look at every great team that's been assembled. There's lots of different options. And when I was a kid, when Montreal wasn't doing that great, I was always a Pittsburgh Penguins fan because of Sidney Crosby. And I think back to all the players that he had around him. He obviously was the leader, but he had a lot of players, including Phil Kessel, as I mentioned, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, you know, Jordan Stahl, Tyler Kennedy, all kinds of guys in that supporting cast. So they're very close. But Jeff, I'm looking forward to the draft big time. I think the top 5 or 6 players are all going to be really, really strong. This is the strongest draft we've seen in a few years. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few teams are locked in so heavily on one player that they trade up even 1 or 2 picks to get them. And I'm looking at my Montreal Canadiens, actually. They might be doing that as well. So we'll see. It should be fun.
Can't wait. Shout out to Connor. And shout out to Sean Alvarez, who gives you a little jab. He says, look at the hair. Wow, not talking about you, Mr. Dawson. So Mr. Alvarez is giving you a little fine hair day on hump day, Andrew. So CFL, week 1 in the books. For the people that weren't here last week or the people that didn't watch, I wasn't one of them. I watched every game. I love football. I love Canadian football. You've gotten me into it. Awesome. And nothing better than sitting there and watching it and trying to learn. And give everyone a recap what transpired in week 1.
Well, what transpired is that it would have been a rough week for me to convince people to like the CFL because the first half of a lot of these games were very slow, a lot of mistakes, but that is due to the lack of preseason, lack of a distant training camp and things like that. But having said that, I think that if you were smart and you watched the numbers, we saw BC Calgary first game of the week last Thursday. That one opened up 47.5, shoots up to 51.5. Talked about that on this show with you. And then literally immediately after I got done doing this show with you, I locked in that under 51.5. It got up to. Calgary's offense looked very disappointing. BC and Vernon Adams Jr. looked great through the air and on the ground. They take that one 25-15. Winnipeg and Hamilton. Winnipeg, well, Jeff, they didn't miss a beat. 42 points for them. Nick Dembski gets involved early on. 21 points is what Winnipeg put up in just the first quarter. Zach Collaros looked like himself. We'll see how that defense holds up, though. They did give up 32 points, 31 points on the other side to Hamilton. So one thing of note as well, which I think is kind of interesting for totals or for anyone that can bet the props in the CFL, Bo Levi Mitchell, who everyone thinks because of his shoulder problems has a bad arm. They averaged the farthest distance per throw in week 1. So I don't think the coach or management are worried about his arm because they threw it farther more often than any other team last week. And obviously we saw upwards of 70 points in that battle. So Hamilton secondary, they got torched, but their offense came to life a lot more in the second half. Montreal, Ottawa, that we don't need to spend any time on that one. Snooze fest. Montreal does a good job of getting off to a good start, but Ottawa, they've got lots of problems. Nick Arbuckle, I believe 3 interceptions for him. Nothing to brag about as far as they're concerned. like I said, Ottawa is going to be one of those teams this year. I think around week 5 or 6, you and I are going to be getting these huge numbers on them. That's when we'll jump in and take them plus the points. Somebody asked me, what's like something you can just tell people that you notice about the CFL, and I actually find it a bit different than other sports. Like look at the NFL, for example. I think that you're better off taking favorites early in the CFL season and dogs later, where I find in the NFL, it's a little bit the opposite. I'm curious your thoughts on that, but I feel like the books might even like overvalue some of these bad teams. Then we kind of have to wait a while to see how bad they really are. That's why the Elks were a good bet on team last year in the second half of the season, but the first half they weren't covering many point spreads. And speaking of the very Elks, 3 and out on the goal line. They had 3 tries and they couldn't get it done for me. Taylor Cornelius looked awful. And for you as well, Jeff. Yeah, Taylor Cornelius, quarterback, looked awful. The coach made sure to tell him that. I don't think Chris Jones did a good job coaching that game in week 1. The offensive line protection wasn't there for them. But one good sign, Gino Lewis had a great game. Well, that one big catch for about a 70-yard touchdown was great to see for them. But they had to protect him in the pocket. And I'll tell you what, I hate to be the guy that overreacts, but for a team like the Elks, if Cornelius does not play well early in the game on this weekend, even though it's only week 2, Jeff, I would not be shocked to see Trey Ford take the field.
Okay. Oh, I thought you stopped for a second. Okay.
Sorry, that was kind of it. I would not be surprised to see a backup get tossed in there. They've been so embarrassing. 18 straight home games that they've lost. It wouldn't shock me to see them already go for. I just hate to be that guy, Jeff, because it's so typical that I don't want to overreact to things and be like, this guy sucks. His job's gone and it's just week 1. But if you're a bad team and you play like how Cornelius played, then why shouldn't they put in their other quarterback? What are your thoughts on that?
I'd look at the OC. We were talking backstage. I mean, 1st and goal from the you-know-what line and get a little creative. I talked to you and I asked you to take a peek at it. On 3rd and goal, the running back ran the wrong play. There was no doubt in my mind. I don't know if he was supposed to lead for the quarterback or whatever, but he went left and the quarterback was looking for him to follow his block or whatever. So I get a little more creative. So listen, a team that's lost 18 in a row at home, they opened up 2.5-point dogs. They closed 2.5-point favorites. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better setup to break that streak, to get your first game, to get the crowd behind you, to get them to start backing you. And instead, now you're going to go on the road and you're 7-point dogs against the BC Lions, which you and I know technically what the right side is. But we just, as you said, they were a fade the first half of the year, but they were definitely a play as you were getting around double digits the second half of the year. I mean, I would still have to say at this point, they're a fade at home. So I'm not a big trend guy. Trends can be your friends. I get that. But I would say trends don't pay the rent of the mortgage. But I think early in the CFL, what I have learned in my first 2 years is to pay attention to them.
Yes. And I think it's worthy of, and not overthinking. Like you said, I remember 2 summers ago when Ottawa was just really, really bad. I would get people messaging me and say, are we doing it again? Are we fading them? Or what's the number? Are we doing it? And I think sometimes we get so caught up. Like I told you all year long, I was disappointed in myself in the NHL year for not betting on the Bruins enough, Jeff. And I think it's a really important lesson for everybody that I don't have to be betting the San Jose Sharks at plus 110 on a Thursday night when the Bruins, I can get them minus 1.5 at plus 130 against a bad team. Why am I not taking the good team against a bad team? And I feel like sometimes as a handicapper, you almost try and overcomplicate things and you don't want to give out the obvious pick. And I want to be better about that in certain scenarios. So I'll be looking to follow along with that. But there's certain teams, just like the first team we'll talk about, the Calgary Stampeders, that are off a rough go against the BC Lions last Thursday. that I think will be able to turn things around in a big, big way. But they have just lost their starting running back. After I praised their running backs, Jeff, first week, an injury, and not just a few weeks, 6 weeks, Kadeem Carey will be injured. That's what your depth is for, though. And Calgary has that. So they're like -4.5, -5. You can look around. I'm going to take a look at the Calgary Stampeders in the first half. I feel like that's the best way to look towards them. Play them -3. The way that they come out is going to tell you a lot about their coaching, tell you a lot about their game plan. And Jake Mayer, he knew he didn't have a bad game. He said it himself. He talked about it after the game. And I have a few quotes I even wanted to read over. I'm not usually a huge quotes guy, but I did bring a few with me. He said, it wasn't a clean game. There were a couple plays we didn't make. I loved how we fought at the end and the rhythm we got, but it was just too late. And head coach Dave Dickinson, he pretty much said, this was one of the worst losses I've seen from Jake Mayer. He did not look good. He did not throw the ball very well. The reason why I bring it up is because some handicappers will tell you, no, I want the mindset of we're on to the next game. We're on to Cincinnati, as you say. I like that Jake Mayer said, I didn't play well. And his coach said he didn't play well, and he knows it because they know what he's capable of. And quite frankly, they get the opportunity now in a quick turnaround to take on an Ottawa Red Blacks team that's inept at both ends of the field, that does not have a strong offense. And if you keep their defense on the field and keep them guessing both through the air, on the ground, they will be caught off guard. So I know it's only week 2, but I'm really narrowing in here on the first half with the Calgary Stamps on the road here, -3. I'll take Calgary to get it done.
I saw it open in number 5 with a 43.5. South Point 4.5 with a 43.5. Circa 543. Let me see. Westgate Superbook 4.5 with a 43.5. So I like where your eyes are on the number, especially, that first half. Vegas is giving you that lean. It wasn't 2.5. They're giving you the solid 3. They like Calgary in the first half. So do I.
Let's do it. And when you look at this game, I saw 42.5s out there as the total. And I'll tell you what, I've been betting CFL for probably about 7 years. I did not see a lot of 42.5s when betting the CFL in my past. This goes to tell you a lot about the game plan that people expect to see from Calgary, which, despite their injury, is a very run-heavy team, but also just the fact that Ottawa cannot move the ball downfield. When they made any plays last week against Montreal, I'm not sure if that was one of the games you caught, Jeff. If it wasn't, I don't blame you. It wasn't really one to watch. They're keeping it very, very simple. Very simple. They're not going to go deep. They're not going to try and make big plays. I would go under. I would look towards. That's why I'm taking Calgary in the first half. I expect them to get a lead, to sit on it, let the clock tick. And quite frankly, obviously, if they do end up seeing that total go over, I think it just means that Calgary put up 30 points, which I don't think they will. So I'll stick with the first half play, but I do have a lean towards the under in this game as well, and I think Ottawa will be an under team for us to follow.
All right, that's Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Rotation number 681, Calgary Stampeders. First half -3, a lean towards the under. Friday night, Winnipeg at Saskatchewan, opening number of 6 with a 47.5. Winnipeg favored by 6. Straight 6.5s on the Vegas Strip. 47.5 at South Point with Chris Andrews and Jimmy Vaccaro. 46.5 at Circa with Mr. Benson and Mr. Metcalf. And I'm looking at 46.5 with Mr. Murray at the Westgate Superbook.
This might sound kind of funny to say, but Saskatchewan got that win against Edmonton last week, but I'm not very impressed by it. I know I lost with Edmonton, but I'm more so saying it was a bad game for Edmonton than it was a good game for Saskatchewan. Now, even though I said that Taylor Cornelius didn't play very well for Edmonton at the quarterback position. I still believe the secondary looked relatively sharp for Saskatchewan, Jeff. I think that they were making their presence known. They were aggressive, tipping balls left and right. And they're, like I said, there was lots of pressure at the quarterback. And if you look at what Hamilton did to Winnipeg last week, Zach Collaros had all the time in the world. He could have sat back, taken a knee, had a sip of a coffee, and then threw the ball. He had way too much time. And I'm not trying to just pump the tires here of Saskatchewan too much, but when I say I think we might see more of a scrappy defensive effort from Saskatchewan than we did see against Hamilton, I really believe it. I think the under's a play here. It's tough taking unders with Winnipeg because, of course, they are capable of putting up points. I do think this is a mismatch. You look at Saskatchewan, they had the Sunday game last week, whereas Winnipeg had the Friday game. So it is a shorter week for Saskatchewan. And one big thing to mention, and this is a big if, I'm waiting for this to happen. I'm waiting for the announcement to come out. I put out a video talking about this. I could not believe that Trevor Harris was left out there for the last offensive play of the game for Saskatchewan. They pretty much went for it on third down, Jeff, and treated that like it was a punt. They did it because it would kill time, right? And Harris gets drilled. He's a guy that had one passing TD, 2 interceptions, already someone I'd said to you last week. Seems like a great guy, but he's not a good quarterback right now where he is. He's an older. He's listed at about 50-50, 60-40. I've heard that the backups are taking reps as well. If that's the case, Winnipeg's going to show their experience. And I've talked about it. Change is the big thing in the CFL. If you're a team that doesn't have a lot of change throughout your roster, you're already ahead. And then if that team is Winnipeg, who's won and been there to the Grey Cup many years in a row, it's not really a recipe for success. I saw some people that were able to get -4s, 4.5s, 5s, 5.5s. Now they're almost laying a touchdown here at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So very interesting to see. But I think that this defense might be a big focal point for both teams, which could lead us to a squeaky under here.
And shop around, like I said, right now at South Point, 47.5, and at Circa and Westgate Superbook, 46.5. There is a 47.5 at FanDuel in Pennsylvania. So I'll just throw out 47. It looks like the middle number right now. So shop around for that one there on Friday night, 9 o'clock under. We'll say 47, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. On Saturday, Edmonton Elks, my Edmonton Elks, at BC. The opening number, BC -7 with a 46.5. Straight 46s now at the Vegas Strip, and flat 7s across the board.
Just real quick, I wanted to answer Connor's question in the live chat. He's asking about the key numbers in the CFL and things like that, and the Rouge. I get asked this question so many times, and I guess what I really will say is that there's a lot of wonky scores in the CFL. I saw a game last year start, and it was 1-1, 4 minutes into the game, right? What is it, a hockey game? The easiest way I would say it, Connor, is that in the NFL, if instead of playing a team +1.5 or +2.5, I'm probably going to take that underdog on the money line. In the CFL, I'll take any points I can get ever. You're going to see a lot of weird score lines, and I'll grab those points whenever I can get them. So it's interesting to look at. It's last week is a good example. There were 1 or 2 games at least where the special teams, the punt returning, the guys not being able to get out of the end zone ended up helping teams cover the point spread. And I'm looking at Winnipeg for that, actually. Hamilton could have backdoor covered if it wasn't for them getting a few singles on the board. So just want to mention that, and I appreciate the question. But Edmonton Elks and BC Lions, told you before backstage, this is the one I've got the big circle around as that game that I think the books want everybody to smack BC. this is the stinker of week one versus the amazing team that could not be stopped in week one. 7 points. That's the number here. The truth is, Jeff, I'd love to get plus 10.5 in game, but I can't handicap in game here. I think the play is Edmonton. I think that they are a lot better than what we saw, but do you really want to rely on a quarterback like that could not, escape the pocket and make a play, that his pass protectors could not help him out whatsoever? And let's be honest, they could barely even convert on second down. Their percentage was horrific. And BC coming in with lots of confidence. The only question mark I really have is that they seem to let the foot off the gas pedal in the second half of last week's game, which I was happy about being on the under. But I think that one could have been a lot worse than it might have been. And it's hard for me to handicap that because I don't know if they almost it seemed like they showed mercy or if Calgary just started playing better. But my lean here would be over, and I do like the points with Edmonton. But I think we see a better offensive performance out of Edmonton, but I do not think they can stop the BC Lions. The BC Lions are going to be a team that, unfortunately, Jeff, you can't really get team totals until game day, so I can't talk about those, at least where I'm shopping. But the BC Lions will be a great team total over team. They're going to be the Edmonton. It actually works out very well. They play down the road from where the Oilers play. They're going to be the Oilers of the CFL. We won't even care about the point spreads with them this year. We'll just keep on grabbing those team total overs.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of that. If you went to your windows and saw a flat 7, anyone that is here that is an ECSI VIP or a long-term knows I'm not playing no key number. So I'm going to buy the hook with Edmonton plus the 7.5 minus the 120. I'm going to sprinkle a little beer and pizza money for the Shocker if they happen to win outright, as our friend Kelly Stewart would say. And also, as Andrew says, I'm not here to promote in-game wagering in regards to, yes, there is definitely times, but it's something that if you are not careful with, I've seen houses and families, I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of big stuff in-game. It's quicksand if you're not disciplined.
Yes.
So if a lot of people will be sitting back with BC Lion teasers, BC Lion money line parlays up the wazoo. I lean my Edmonton Elks. Now, again, I'll probably come back with egg on my face again next Wednesday here. But as Andrew says, he leans the over 46. Keep an eye. You might be able to get a 10.5 if they start slow. But again, as we always preach, Andrew, everyone remembers what they saw last, and that was the Edmonton game, losing as favorites at home, stuffed not once, not twice, but 3 times on the goal line. They don't play well at home, guys, so look for a bounce back there. And the initial thought was 27-20. That's what Vegas is saying. The number looks like it's creeping a little lower, so maybe this is a 24-20 game or something like that.
And if they do, and it's a really good point by you, because if they score there, right, they're at 20 points for the game. And in a game they didn't play very well in either. So give me a game that they play well in. Maybe they're getting 23, 24 points. And to me, if they reach 23 points, that's a cover. That's a point spread cover. So, and let's not forget as well, I've got locked in my back pocket Calgary Stamps over 9.5 wins. I believe in Calgary. And I said they had a bad week one, but I'm not buying it. That's not who they are. We're going to find out tomorrow how good they are, despite their number one running back being out. I think the recipe really adds up. And who knows what'll happen? Maybe BC does run them out of the building. But I think as I've grown as a handicapper, these spots stick out to me a lot more. And Calgary underperforms week one. BC looks great. The Elks get shut out. They go 3 straight times on the goal line, don't get it done. And all of a sudden, all it says is 13 points for them, where it could have been 20. It's an interesting number. I look forward to seeing what happens there with this one. And let me ask you this, Jeff. Do you expect that number to reach 7 in the hook in favor of BC, or sit right where it is right now?
My honest opinion, I think late money comes in the Elks and it closes at 6.5. I think that 7, that 7's the perfect number where you're getting both sides. I think a late push on Saturday around 6:30. Maybe you wake up Saturday morning and you'll see a little buyback on the Elks. I think the public will be in up to 7. If they see 6.5, they're going to jump. But I think that 7 is that magical number. And again, as we just brought up, technically the Elks, if they didn't have a brain fart, would have landed on 20 as it is. I mean, but they see the 13 when they really should have been 20, and which puts that at the 27-20 or 26-20 is what Vegas is saying. So,
and it's a big week for Edmonton too. You know, even just put up towards a respectable performance, and you and I aren't asking them to win the game; we're asking them to cover.
Correct. The nightcap on Sunday. Make sure, yes, Sunday. Hamilton travels to Toronto. The opening number, Toronto, -2 with a 47. We've seen the flip. Now, this is back-to-back Sunday games where there's been a flip. Last week, Edmonton went from +2.5 to -2.5. Now we're seeing it here with the home team opening up 2-point favorites against Hamilton with a 47. Now I'm seeing 2s and 2.5 Hamilton favored with a 46.5 or a 47 at the Superbook.
Jeff, I'm seeing a lot of changes and injuries and updates and things with this game. Overall, for the Sunday game, I like the over 46.5. It's one of my favorite plays of the week. I'll call that my best bet for our show here this week for week 2. When I look at what Hamilton was able to do in week 1, right? I talked about it. They gave up 42, but guess what? They also scored 31 themselves. Bo Levi and company got it together in the second half. Whatever was said in the halftime, I know Winnipeg had a big lead. I know some of those points might have been in garbage time, but I'm still impressed the fact that they were able to come out and pull it together a little bit. James Butler, I think he'll run the ball a lot more. He had success, though, doing so. Tim White did exactly what they expect him to do. But when I look at this team, their secondary got burnt. And I keep talking about not wanting to overreact, but what I saw from their secondary cannot and will not be fixed from one week to the next. You can't fix that in 6 days. The way that they were able to get torched. Chad Kelly, he can throw the ball. He also can move the ball on his feet as well. He's not scared to leave the pocket. Gittins Jr., Tavares Daniels, Willette. There's so many guys out there that can make plays for the Argonauts. And a lot of people say to me, well, how do you feel that the Argos had a bye in week 1? They haven't played a real game shape. And, you know, Jeff, the more I think about it, the more my answer is you know what? It does not bother me. They haven't played a real game yet. They had another week of practice, week and a half of practice to get right and get ready for their big rivalry game. I think Toronto might take it, but it's a real desperate spot there. I think Hamilton, they really want to start off 1-1. Playing Winnipeg and Toronto their first 2 weeks. I think this one's fireworks. I think we see both quarterbacks slinging it. Like I mentioned, Hamilton, their quarterback, Bo Levi Mitchell, he averaged the farthest distance per throw in week 1 out of all the quarterbacks. So they're clearly going deep. They're clearly trying to make plays, and I think over 46.5 is the best play. Slight lean to the home team here in the Argos in their home opener, but I'm going to have to go with the over 46.5 as my best bet for today's show.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And Connor says also that 1-1 game late in the first must have been electric. Can't wait for the first game I come across like that. I love ridiculous things like that in sports. Laugh my you-know-what up. Connor, thank you. All right, so we have the weekend covered. Calgary -3 first half on Thursday. Friday under 47, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan with a lean towards, we had the under there. Saturday, Edmonton plus the 7.5 minus the hook right here. Also over 46 lean there. And your best play on the weekend, over 46.5, Hamilton and Toronto. Does that sound correct, sir?
Yes, sir. Let's have a week.
ECSI VIPs, an amazing day to start. And you wonder why we do what we do. We took the Cardinals minus a half run, first 5 minus the 115. Gave up 2 in the first, could have been a lot worse. We win the first 5-2. Well, guess what? I looked to my right, and San Francisco came back and won 8-5. So you wonder why we do what we do, number one. And I think it was in extras, too. And secondly, our one prop of the day, Mr. Ronald Acuna Jr., plus 240 for a stolen base. Bingo! Cash that one, too. So congrats to that as well. The promos have been running here the whole time. If you're not following Andrew, please do at McInnis Picks, at Wager Talk, at Sports Mayflower. Go over to YouTube to Mayflower Sports. Subscribe. It's for free. While you're at YouTube, jump on over to East Coast Sports Investors. Subscribe there. It's free. And at Wager Talk, promo code CFL15 takes $15 off this week's 5% best bet. But as I always do, Andrew, there it is, the 10-yard button hook. Wrap it up.
Hey, I really appreciate it again. I love doing these shows with you. I believe in full transparency. So as far as my official client plays last week, I did go 2-2. I was one touchdown away with the Elks, away from a 3-1. But last week's free play winner, the best bet one I gave out here on the show, did come in there on the under. We have Montreal. So best bet for the show going over in Toronto, Hamilton. You can get my favorite bet of the week up at Wager Talk and use that promo. Make sure you guys use it. If you want to buy the play, CFL 15, CFL 15 takes $15 off the play. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. From everyone to Connor to Sean Alvarez, Mr. Smooth, not once, not twice, all three exactas in the three major horse races on Saturday. He nailed the exacta. He also had the winner at the Kentucky Derby with the exacta there. So if we can bring them on, we bring them on here, guys. So we can't thank you guys enough. For myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Andrew McInnis at McInnis Picks, we wish everyone a blessed day. I think in about 45 minutes, Riley Magnuson with the closing bell will be coming in. ECSI VIPs, I'm looking for a nightcap, but there'll also be definitely a PGA US Open coming soon. So enjoy the night, guys. See you soon.